Okay, I hope everyone is here. Division 1 and 2. Hello,
Yes, sir. Good morning.
good morning everyone. डिवीजन 1 से कोई एक बोल सकता है और डिवीजन 2 से कोई खाली बोल सकता है कि दोनों यहाँ पे हैं?
Yes, sir, Division 1.
Oh,
Division 2.
okay, that's fine. That's great. Okay, so in one of your divisions, I guess हमने types of I guess chapter 1 complete कर दिया था, right? कौन सा डिवीजन में चैप्टर 1 कंप्लीट कर दिया था? गाइस फटाफट 5 मिनट का क्विक रिवीजन हमने लास्ट लैब में क्या
Division 1,
लास्ट लेक्चर में क्या हाँ मतलब उसमें क्या किया था हमने?
views of OS.
Okay. Anything else? कुछ ऐड करना चाहोगे?
वो टाइम बेस्ड मतलब एकदम टाइम कॉन्शियस ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम और दूसरा जिसमें मतलब टाइम तो का रोल तो है लेकिन उतना ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं।
ओके दैट्स ग्रेट। तो एक डिवीजन मैंने चैप्टर 1 कंप्लीट कर दिया। सॉरी फॉर दैट। ओके and in next division we are going to proceed with new chapter. So even tomorrow we are having lecture, right? Combined lecture आप दोनों divisions का. So let's proceed in the same way. Just a second, I am just opening some stuff for you guys. Okay, did you guys your A to Z file link? Yes or not? Okay, no response.
No, sir.
Okay, I will make sure कि आपको मिल जाए. And one more thing that whatever lecture I am taking, I am trying to, which we are recording, right? आप लोग मुझे याद दिलाते ही हो. So I'm trying to also upload it on YouTube. Okay. So अगर आप लोग download करना भूल जाते हो, तो आप वहाँ से वापस download कर सकते हो. Okay, just for you guys, I have just uploaded there also. So that's it. And I don't know we discussed about the book or not, but if you see in your syllabus or teaching scheme, you must have this book. Okay, so मैं आपको दो book personally I would recommend two books to you guys. This book I have just sent in the chat. That is your main textbook for this subject. And there is one more book which I would recommend you guys. That is Modern Operating System by Tenenbaum. Okay, so I'm also sending that name in the chat. Okay, so these are the two books which you can refer. I don't know in past lecture I have mentioned it or not, but for now I'm mentioning it again. Okay. Just a second, guys. Facing some minor issue here. Okay, anyone would like to ask anything from last lecture? कोई question कुछ पूछना हो तो anything? Okay, I guess nothing. Okay, so for Jaisalman has started your second chapter, yes or no, in both of the division?
No,
Not yet.
no.
Okay, then I should start with the second chapter, no? Okay, that's fine. Let me then start with it. Okay, so now I don't know what happened in your next lecture, but I'm just okay. I'm just starting with your second chapter, and yeah. So let's move with the second chapter. That is all about your process management. Okay, this lecture is all about process management. So first of all, I have also already asked the same question in the earlier lecture also, right? Okay, what is process? Yes, guys, what is process? A simple question. I have already asked it once in the previous lecture also. What is process? Guys, please.
A procedure of performing a task.
Or in simple way, can I say a program in execution?
Yes, sir.
Okay, uh, a program in execution. Okay, a program which is in execution. I am just using this symbol for execution right now. Okay, so when we are talking about process, so there is something called process state. Now, before understanding this process state and all this stuff, there is one point which you guys need to understand. That is when a process is running. Okay, when a process is running, there are two modes of process. Okay, whenever a process is running, there are two modes of process. One is known as user mode. Okay, the other one is known as kernel mode. Okay, the other one is known as kernel mode. So kernel mode is the mode whenever you want to access your let's say CPU memory. Okay, means I'm here. I'm in primary memory, yeah, with memory. Okay, so means your primary memory, that's your RAM, right? So if you want to access this kind of stuff, then your process needs to be entered in kernel mode. Okay, and why we want to do this? Okay, so if let's just take a example of a bank. Okay, in a bank when you're going, okay, are you directly going to your locker and taking your money out and putting it into your locker or in your account? आप डायरेक्टली अपने पैसे उसके अंदर डालते हो? No, you are using some medium, right? We are going to a desk, okay, a receptionist, okay, or a cashier, okay, whatever you can say, whatever the facility they are providing. At that, you are going to your receptionist or your cashier, and you are giving him a sleep. You are filling it, and you are giving him it to him, and then he's depositing your account into your money into your account, right? So you're not directly taking that money from your account and withdrawing or crediting, right? You're not doing that it directly. You are you are having some intermediator, right? So similarly, whenever you are doing this critical task, right, like accessing the CPU cycles, majorly you can think about what kernel mode is. That whenever you want to do the access of CPU cycles, that's your main kernel mode, right? Majorly we can say that only, right? And operating system is the one who is responsible for your interaction, right? Operating system is the one who is responsible for this interaction with your underlying architecture. So using your underlying architecture, majorly your CPU or processing power or core units, right? So to maintain the integrity, okay, I'm writing in short. To maintain the integrity, a process is always in user mode. Okay, if a process has entered, then it is always in user mode. And if it wants to do some stuff with your CPU and all that stuff, then this process, okay, then this process enters the kernel mode. Okay, and once, yeah, it is done with this kernel mode, it exits kernel mode and come back into user mode. A simple concept. Okay, a simple concept of user mode and kernel mode of process. Is it understandable why this, what is this concept, and why we are having this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So this is a very simple concept of user mode and kernel mode, and the same terminology, I don't know, it will be used many a times in many a places, right? So these are the normal, no, general definition for your user mode and kernel mode. Okay, and I hope you will remember this. So this is your user mode and kernel mode. Okay, now let me ask a question. Let's say there are two processes. Okay, at a time there are hundred and thousand of processes running parallelly, but let's say there are two processes, they are running in user mode. Is it possible that these two processes at a time goes in kernel mode? Yes or no? And why? I hope you got my question. This is process one. This is process two, which has entered, and in default case it will be always in user mode. And now, can I have these two process in kernel mode at a time? मतलब ऐसा हो सकता है कि I am having these two process, one and two, and both are entering in kernel mode. Is it possible? Yes or no? Be logic. Use your logic or common sense. Anything of it. हो सकता है ऐसा? And just relate to this receptionist वाला example, bank वाला example.
Sir,
Hmm.
a friend of mine is not able to join the meeting. The button is not available.
Just a second. I can add it. What is the enrollment number?
29.
Okay, 19 TCS. Okay, 029. Krutarth Desai.
Yes, yes.
Okay, but he is already in meeting. Krutarth is already in the call.
Okay, sir.
No, sir, he isn't in the meeting. He is just able to comment.
No, but see, even he message just joined.
Yeah, and there's also someone by the ID 004 who also requested for the same.
Join button is not available. Button was not available. Okay, so Krutarth has joined. Okay, I
I
actually
also
didn't got
joined,
the.
sir.
Okay, actually at that time I didn't saw got this message. मतलब मुझे दिख नहीं रहा था. Okay, not an issue. अभी join कर लिया ना? Okay, just a quick revision. What I said that when we're talking about process, there are several processes created at a time. So there are two modes: user mode and kernel mode. Okay, so a process is in default case, a process is always in user mode, and whenever it wants to access your CPU power, processing power, or any integrity stuff, right? Any stuff related to integrity where integrity needs to be maintained, it enters into kernel mode, and then operating system helps for that special case, and then operating system switches that process into the user mode. Okay, operating system is the one who is switching your processes from user mode to kernel mode. Okay, if process needs to use that integrity related stuff of your PC or resources, at that time operating system is switching between to this system is switching your processes into these two modes. Okay, so my question is, if I'm having more than one process, let's say I am having process 1 and 2. If I'm having a process 1 and 2, so in default case both has entered into the user mode. So is it possible that this both process can also enter kernel mode together? मतलब ऐसा होता है ना कि योर फ्रेंड लाइक दोनों खाना खाने साथ में गए, फिर खाना खा के रिटर्न भी वापस आए साथ में. So क्या यहाँ ऐसा हो सकता है that these two processes are entering kernel mode together? Yes or no? And if yes, then why? If no, then why? And please use your logic, common sense और कुछ नहीं. And wrong answers are welcome. Okay, so please don't think कि मेरा आंसर गलत होगा. Please respond. क्या होगा? Is it possible? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, why it should be possible?
वो एक प्रोसेस एक कोर पे, दूसरा प्रोसेस दूसरे कोर पे.
Okay, that is something according to parallel processing, right? Mm. For now, just think that you are having only, let's say, दूसरे course पे, right? If you are having 4 cores, and let's talk about 5 processes. तो
तो भी हो ही रहा है ना, मतलब इवन इफ यू डोंट थिंक अबाउट मल्टी कोर, अभी भी अगर आप देखो आपका पीसी या फिर मेरा पीसी, उनमें भी एक प्रोसेस है जो कि विंडोज को चला रहा है और दूसरा प्रोसेस है जो कि आपका ब्राउजर चला ही रहा है साइड बाय साइड साथ में.
see, see, मैंने वही बोला कि when you see when you need to operate IO, that is not your kernel mode. Okay, that is not your kernel mode when you are operating your IO. Again, understand मैंने क्या बोला, kernel mode क्या है? मैंने क्या बोला, kernel mode
Access to
क्या है?
CPU and memory is given by kernel.
Not memory, not even memory. Only integrity stuff. That means your processing unit. Okay, so
If we have 5 processes and we have 4 core CPU, then we cannot execute all processes at a time.
obviously, see, okay, let me give you the answer. There is only one process at a time in kernel mode. बाकी सारे operation user mode में रहते हैं. Now, can you state me the reason why?
Sir, repeat करो.
See,
Maybe because operating system deadlock लगा देता है.
see, first of all, मैं थोड़ा सा और कर्नल मोड को डिटेल में बोलता हूँ. Okay, let me give more detailing on kernel mode. See, when a program enters in a kernel mode, or kernel mode is something which has highest priority. Okay, which has complete over everything in your system. Okay, when your process is in kernel mode, that means it has control at every system. Let's say if one process is printing the using some printer, right? So second process wouldn't be able to use it. Okay, just example, no, not a perfect one, but just example to understand कि मैं kernel mode को क्या बोलना चाह रहा हूँ. Kernel mode is something where your process will have superpower. Okay, let's say if I have written some process and it is running in user mode, that process will have some restriction. Okay, That process will have not some many restrictions, okay, as per defined law. But when a process enters into kernel mode, it can access anything. It has control almost on everything on your system. When a process enters into a kernel mode, okay, and if 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 you if you can understand what that if I want to say a typical line that the kernel is a computer program at the core of computer's operating system and has complete control over everything in system. Matlab, when I am defining where this existence of this kernel mode came, that that is actually who is your kernel. Operating system is your kernel. See, just say this is operating system. Okay, so the main core part of operating system, is known as kernel. Okay, the main the main core part of operating system, actually, in a way you can say this operating system is equivalent to your kernel. Okay, but over this kernel, operating system has other powers also, other utility is also, and together with that utilities, okay, together with that utilities, it completely becomes an operating system. Now, what is your kernel? So if I say that what is your kernel, so kernel is nothing but a core part of your operating system. Okay, it is nothing but a core part of your operating system, and it has complete control of complete system. Okay, that's why yeah, it has no, in the core part of your operating system, it can uh, interact with your hardware and software components, and it is the first program which needs to be loaded after bootloader. Okay, uh, one thing, that whenever your operating system starts, the first thing which happens is your bootloader is loaded. Okay, a bootloader is a something which is loaded into your main memory. Okay, that is the first program which is ever loaded in any operating system. After that, it's your kernel which is loaded. Okay, after that it is your kernel which is loaded, and in the startup it handles everything: memory, peripherals, input output requests from software, any instruction to your CPU, any critical code. Okay, that is separated from your area of memory. अगर आप कभी अपना boot if you go to your CMT और कभी आप check करना चाहो ना, there will be a separate memory, a small chunk of memory which is always kept separate. Okay, which is not even assigned a drive name, right? This part अगर किसी को पता हो command, you can see that. So critical parts of your operating system is kept in that part, or critical codes are kept there. So kernel is responsible to manage all such things. Okay, kernel is responsible to manage all such things. Okay, and it's a low level abstract layer. Okay, it directly interacts with your CPU, it directly interacts with your memory, it directly can interact with your devices. Okay, so this is what we can say for kernel. Okay, this is what is the definition of kernel. Now we are talking about kernel mode of process. Okay, now we are talking about kernel mode of process. So when we are talking about kernel mode, okay, or we can say that kernel mode is something from user, switching from kernel mode to user mode. So the most important part is that kernel mode provides your process that is known as SCI, system call interface. Okay, it provides you that. Now what is system call interface? See, whenever you are using system call interface, okay, you are trying to go in kernel mode or you are in kernel mode. So what is system call interface? नॉर्मल टाइप मतलब क्या है, इंग्लिश है उसको गुजराती ट्रांसलेशन करो, તમને આન્સર મળી જશે. વોટ ઇઝ સિસ્ટમ કોલ ઇન્ટરફેસ? Okay, no answer again. Okay, that's fine. So again, to make it more clear, a user mode is a normal mode where process has limited access, जो मैंने already बोला. Okay, and then kernel mode, I can say it like it's a privileged mode, or a mode in which you are having unrestricted access to your resources, any resources, hardware, memory, anything. Okay, or even your process can get a registration for doing IO operations, right? If that access can be given it. Okay, a process can access IO hardware registers to program it, can execute OS kernel code, and can access kernel data also in kernel mode. So anything related to, you can say, memory management, IO hardware management, or even process management. To do that, this kind of management, you require your kernel mode. Okay, do this kind of critical task is you require your kernel mode, and this is important that a process in kernel mode get power to access any device and memory. So it is very critical that when you are assigning a process a kernel mode, okay, when you are assigning a process into kernel mode, okay, and it can be disastrous, right? If kernel mode brings down, means if anything happen in kernel, so it will bring down your whole system down. Okay, it will crash your system. Okay, so this is what is kernel mode is, right? So now when I say that in kernel mode only one process is there. So let's say अगर मेरे पास hardware है, अगर मैं दो process को, if let's say if I'm having a hardware and two processes are in kernel mode, then two processes are having superpower, and those two processes will try to access that hardware. So don't you think there will be ambiguity? हम क्या करेंगे उस state में? A process, see, why we are assigning a process a superpower or a kernel mode power? Okay, my superpower is my term, huh? It's not a technical term. I'm just using myself, but it is technically a kernel mode. So why we are assigning a process that kernel mode? So that it can freely access some IO devices or some resources of your computer. Okay, it has that priority to do that, so that other processes won't do it. So you can imagine the switching speed ke agar 1000 processes are going on, so each process, if each process needs to use your hardware resources or any critical resources of your system, it needs to be switched under kernel mode and then again switch back into your user mode, right? So you can imagine the speed that in background, that at what speed this process are switching from user mode to kernel mode. Okay, so if I want to draw something, no, hmm, okay, that's there's no need, but let me try to draw something so that you can remember that this is your user mode. Okay, let's keep it like this. Okay, this is your user mode. Okay, you are having your user mode here, and mm, let's say this your process is in user mode, and there is some library. Okay, it is actually related to your Linux system. Okay, which will help you to get into your kernel mode. Okay, so means here you are showing the interest by your program that you want to go in your kernel mode. Okay, so this is user mode. Okay, this is the part of user mode. Here you are having your application or process, or you can imagine anything, right? So let's say it is your part of your application. You are going into kernel mode, and you are having your system call. Okay, system call interface, and you are accessing your kernel. See, I'm not writing kernel mode. You are accessing your kernel. Kernel means a core part of your hardware, and then you are accessing your hardware. or resources. Okay, so this is your kernel mode. Okay, this part is your kernel mode. Okay, and the above part is your user mode. So am I making sense that what is kernel mode and what is user mode? Difference between them and the need of it, or any doubt, any questions if you guys want to ask?
You said that a process in kernel mode can actually manipulate even kernel data. So won't it be a disastrous security threat or a very high
No.
imminent security threat?
Exactly, exactly. That's why it is said that that is the main difference between the different operating system, even in kernel mode. Okay, let's say if I talk about Windows, okay, talk about Windows, even if your process gets into your kernel mode, it is not having the complete control of your hardware. It is said that it is in kernel mode, but it is not really having complete data or complete control on everything. And that is where operating system also plays role. Operating system का एक goal भी है. Okay, we just thought about convenience and efficiency. Okay, so due to that, in that operating system is also responsible for what? Privacy and security. Okay, so when you are creating your operating system, when someone is creating your operating system, so at that time he needs to take care कि कब कोई process kernel mode में जाएगा और किस वजह से जाएगा and what will be the environment. And yes, it would be disastrous because if you don't handle, if your operating system is not handling your process very correctly, because the operating system has that power to switch it from user mode to kernel mode, right? So if your operating system is not well designed to handle that program, okay, then it will be disastrous. So Windows में हम बोलते हैं ना that we do have convenience, like convenience factor है यहाँ पे, but we don't have control over this operating system, right? Even a process gets into the user kernel mode, it really don't have good control over your operating system or your resources. Why? Because it is giving you bit restriction even in kernel mode. But when you talk about open source software like Linux, right? क्यों काली Linux existence में आया? See, this all this Kali Linux, this Ubuntu, okay, or Fedora, or any other operating system. These are Linux operating system. Why Linux operating system, right? But for this all guys, Linux is your kernel. That's why this is known as Linux operating system. Okay, Linux is your kernel. But when I'm talking about XP, Microsoft 2000, XP Crystal, Windows 10, okay, so हमारा उस केस में kernel कौन है? Windows है. Okay, they have given the name to their kernel, that is Windows. Okay, so ये उनके kernels हैं. So this kernels are designed in that way कि वो disaster ना हो, जो आपने जिसकी अभी बात की, and it will be disastrous अगर it is not handled correctly. But though this is important to provide kernel mode. Why? Because first of all, if I want to access a printer, so at a time one process will be handling that printer, na? Two process cannot use it together, right? So obviously this kernel mode is required to do that stuff. Okay, your resources, your software can be accessed in kernel mode only. Okay, so it is switched in that part and then it is switched back to user mode once your work is done. So there is something which operating system does is creating that restriction or condition that how your your process will turn from user mode to kernel mode.
बट सर ये काम तो हम उसको केवल और केवल रिसोर्सेज का ही एक्सेस दे और कर्नल डेटा को चेंज ना मतलब मैनिपुलेट ना करने का एक्सेस दे तो भी हो ही सकता है ना.
Okay, so पहली बात कर्नल डेटा क्या है?
वेल आई डोंट नो बट जो भी आपका डिस्क्रिप्शन रहा है उससे तो बहुत ही ज्यादा क्रिटिकल लगता है.
Yeah, exactly. Kernel data is you can say that status of your system. It can be status of your system. Okay, kernel data can be your bootloader data, block disk data. Okay, so block disk data in the sense of I don't know you have studied that subject or not, but I really don't know you have studied that subject in algorithms. I guess it comes or not, but there is a block disk. ओके इफ आई टॉक अबाउट विंडोज तो वहाँ पे एक सुपर ब्लॉक होता है विच इज यूज टू मैप योर कंप्लीट हार्ड डिस्क ओके सो अगर मैं इसे पढ़ नहीं पाऊंगा तो एंड इफ आई वांट टू एक्सेस सम स्पेसिफिक मेमोरी तो मुझे कैसे पता चलेगा कि मैं ये मेमोरी में से एक्सेस करना है let's say this is a block why we need to give this your question is simple why we need to give this access to your kernel data right why we need to do it so this is one simple scenario that मुझे एक memory location पे जाना है okay and for that I am having a super block okay this is simply merely known as super block and or boot block okay where you are also having information in the backend side of complete memory mapping or index you can say that it is a index of your HD or your hard disk right it is the index of your hard disk ऐसा समझ सकते हो index पेज है so if I want to locate this memory in 2 TB hard disk right तो मुझे ये super block जो एक important data है जो kernel data है I need to access this तो प्रोसेस नीड्स टू रीड दिस ना तो अगर मैं ऐसा ना करूं तो सी देयर आर व्हाट आई मीन टू से दैट देयर आर सेवरल सिनेरियोज जहां पे हमें कर्नल डेटा देना पड़ता है बिकॉज बिकॉज ऑफ इट यू आर हैविंग सम एप्लीकेशन गोइंग ऑन योर सिस्टम उसके बिना पॉसिबल नहीं है दैट्स व्हाई वी देयर इज अ नीड टू गिव दिस कर्नल मोड बट उसको संभालने का काम ही दैट इट डज नॉट क्रिएट इन डिजास्टर that is what your privacy and security is इसलिए हम बोलते हैं ना why is this virus what are this virus that, which are having this loopholes of your system this is one of your loophole और ये जितना secured होगा उतना वो loophole छोटा होगा but there will be always a loophole in your system it can never be 100% protected so there are some stuff okay there are this kind of some stuff जो हमें मतलब we want to give to our, there are some kernel data we need to give to our process so that it can execute and do the aimed stuff right do the entire aim stuff शायद इसके बिना आपकी गेमिंग भी पॉसिबल नहीं है राइट इट इज एंड एज यू सेड दैट कि मैंने जो डिस्क्रिप्शन दिया उससे क्रिटिकल है यस इट इज क्रिटिकल बट it's a compulsion it's a need to give that access okay anything else any inputs see if our lecture turns into a discussion और उसके इसके तरह हम अपना टॉपिक खत्म करते जाते हैं that's very great thing huh? Okay. Anything you would like to add? Quick question. Okay, so I guess no, right? Okay, then that's fine. So this was what this kernel mode and user mode was, right? This is what your kernel mode and user mode was. So in next lecture, एक डिवीजन में फर्स्ट चैप्टर का थोड़ा सा कंटेंट बाकी है वो मैं ले लूंगा आई गेस टुडेज डिवीजन कौन सा डिवीजन था वो जिसमें बाकी है आई गेस टीसीएस डिवीजन 2 राइट
Yes, sir.
ओके डोंट वरी अबाउट इट आई मैंने उसको लिख के रखा है अलग से वी विल बी कंप्लीटिंग जब हमारा सेपरेट लेक्चर होगा ठीक है बट वी विल बी कंप्लीटिंग इट एंड प्रोबेबली टुमारो वी विल बी स्टार्टिंग विथ योर सेकंड चैप्टर ठीक है दिस टॉपिक इज समवेयर बिटवीन फर्स्ट चैप्टर एंड सेकंड चैप्टर अकॉर्डिंग टू मी ये सेकंड चैप्टर में होना चाहिए बट अकॉर्डिंग टू बुक्स everyone has kept in first chapter so I hope you have understood what is this user mode and kernel mode और अब आगे कोई कर्नल मोड और यूजर मोड की बात करेगा, यू मस्ट हैव अ कॉमन लॉजिक के ये क्या होगा, right? And what is this operating system doing here in this user mode and kernel mode, right? Okay, so for today we are keeping till here, and from tomorrow we'll move ahead. Okay, any questions, anything you would like to ask? If no, then I'm going to end this meeting. So that's why I'm asking. Any questions, anything?
No, sir.
Okay, then goodbye. Let's meet in next lecture.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.